wizard. It's a 2/2. It says, whenever Surge Spanner becomes tapped, you may pay 1 and a blue. If you do, return target permanent to its owner's hand. So you capsize something every time Surge Spanner becomes tapped. You have to pay the 2 mana. This is just insanely powerful. And repeated bounce, we know because of capsize. I mean, how many decks play capsize is very powerful in the format as a way to sort of lock one up or even more opponents, depending on tapping Surge Banner and whatnot, just out of the game. Just like they can never. We saw on game nights, Craig was in a position where he could play 2 things, you bounce 2 things, and basically time walk him every single turn.
Every turn. And not to mention Craig's goal was to cast a commander that now costs 11 mana, right? So he's trying to ramp it out. He's trying to use creature-based ramp, and as well, actually, the creature-based ramp is what really got Craig, because he just couldn't keep that single Somberwald Sage on the board long enough to ever tap it to use it for its mana. So,
yeah,
Surge Banner, pretty effective.
Surge Banner did so much work. It was so good.
Yeah. 2 other tapper cards that are just general value cards and happen to be Merfolk as well are Merfolk Looter, which you can just tap to draw and discard, and Enclave Cryptologist, which is a level-up creature that you can...
I didn't realize this was a Merfolk either.
I know, right? But you start tapping the Enclave Cryptologist to draw and discard, and at a certain point, it just taps to draw a card. So these, again, are both creatures that want to be tapped and specifically want to be untapped, so you can use their ability a lot later on.
Yeah, Cryptologist is a card that just kind of sees a lot of play because it's a 1-drop that has real utility.
Yeah.
You have to level it up a little bit. But
a ton of utility.
Yeah,
now, here's where things get a little silly with Surge Spanner is a card called Drowner of Secrets. It's a 1/3 Merfolk wizard to tap an untapped Merfolk you can control. Target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So Surge Spanner can obviously be tapped by Kumena to make her unblockable, but at the same time, you also want other cards that will be able to tap, because you never want to attack with your Surge Spanner.
Oh yeah, that's something we didn't talk about with Surge Spanner. Usually that downside, it has to become tapped to do its thing.
Yeah.
It's not there, because Kumena, you can just tap it to make Kumena unblockable, even if you're not going to attack with Kumena, even if you don't care about that.
Not your turn,
you're just trying to tap the Surge Spanner. Yeah.
And so Drowner of Secrets does the exact same thing, and then maybe in some weird 1 out of 100 scenario, you may actually want to try and mill someone out with.
You might get like an untappy combo where you're tapping Drowner of Secrets, 15 times in a turn somehow with certain synergies. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I
mean, it's not cool when it happens to me, but it's cool in theory. The next one is really interesting. So it's Sea Hunter. It's a 2 blue for a human mercenary. It's a human, so that's why it's interesting. You pay 3 and you tap it to search your library for a Merfolk card, and then put that card into play, and then shuffle your library. You don't sacrifice the Sea Hunter or anything. No. This is the... is there even a... I'm trying to think of an analog to it. I was going to say Captain Sisay, but that's to your hand, right?
Yeah.
So this is tutor and cheat mana cost, right?
Yep.
In a deck that is good at untapping things, so you might be able to just go boom, boom, get your 2 best Merfolk onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this deck is about, like, find Galena, find Surge Spanner, find basically the most powerful cards that you can. And even though he isn't a Merfolk himself, he's just hunting those seas. Being able to untap it, even just having this there and being able to do it once is pretty good too, because the deck doesn't play that many. My deck doesn't play that many tutors. You could obviously run like the whole Green Sun Zenith package and stuff, but I wanted to keep it very thematic and very much in the world of, all right, well, if we're going to go for Merfolk, we're going to find things that want to go for Merfolk.
Yeah, this card says Merfolk on it, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. The last card we have in the tapping category is one that has just been a consistent all-star across game nights. I'd say it's one of the just best cards for Commander ever made.
It's on the staples list now,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
If we had to do another top 10 green list, I think I'd put this on there.
I think I did. I think we did.
Maybe we did.
Anyway.
Let us know. Cryptolith Rite. 1 and a green. It's an enchantment. It just says creatures you control have tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So not only is this going to fix your mana if you're in a multicolored deck, but it also just turns every single one of your creatures into a Birds of Paradise, minus the flying.
So good.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly good.
Yeah.
Plus, the creatures that want to, we saw on game nights, things like Surge Spanner that wants to become tapped, actually now taps for the mana to activate its own ability. That gets nuts.
Yeah, so you're tapping it, giving yourself a blue or a mana to pay for the colorless, and boom, you have 1 and the blue, just costing 1 now, usually for the most part.
The Enclave Cryptologist can use its mana to level itself up.
Yep. Lots of
good
combos.
So good.
Now let's talk about things that untap, and this is one of your favorite cards, actually, Kira's Follower.
Yeah, I love this card. It's just a blue and a green for a 2/2. You can tap it to untap target permanent. It's so good. It's
permanent. Permanent. I love seeing the word permanent.
This is another like almost staple card
For Simic, for sure.
because we have so many mana rocks and things. Even if you're not running a deck like yours,
Right.
where you have tons of things that want to tap, so untapping and using them again, like Empress Galena, Surge Spanner, is very powerful. But even that, just your Mana Vaults, your Basalt Monoliths, your more expensive, your Grim Monoliths, even Soul Ring, like those types of things, even Temple of the False Gods. There's so many things in a normal deck that Kior's Follower wants to untap. Now, in this deck, you'll also want to untap all your creatures. You know, that can be... I mean, you were doing it on game nights. It allowed you
a Mana Vault.
Yeah, and it allowed your Surge Spanner. That was why you were being able to basically time walk Craig every turn.
Yeah.
So...
Sorry, Craig. That was brutal.
Sakama, scary.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about a couple of the Marrow cards. They are some of my favorite untappers. So Marrow Regery. I never know how to pronounce this. Regery?
Mirror Regery, yeah.
Marrow.
You had it.
Marrow. 2 in the blue for a Merfolk Soldier. It's a 2/2. Other Merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's a Lord, which is pretty sweet. But whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may tap or untap target permanent. What?
It's... I always forget about the
creature,
tap part. You used it to great effect on game nights, where you were actually like, oh, I'm gonna cast a Merfolk, untap this thing, then I'm gonna cast another Merfolk, and actually tap down one of your blockers.
Yeah. So
and
I could
kill you.
Get in for the damage. Yeah, I love the Marrow cards. There's also Marrow Commerce, which is an uncommon from Lorwyn, and it's a 1 in the blue enchantment that just says at the beginning of your unstep, untap all Merfolk you control. So
it's
2
kind of
mana.
like Seedborn Musi.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Specifically for creatures, but...
So now you get 2 Seedborn Muses in your deck. It's not the same, I know. It's not all your stuff. But when you're tapping...
I didn't even play Seedborn Muse in this deck because I didn't need it.
When you're tapping... that way you can just like, oh, I want to draw a card. And now I'm going to untap, and now I can draw another card.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, so I like Marrow Commerce quite a bit.
Next one's one of my favorites. Also, this deck tends to have a lot of my favorite stuff because... untapping and untapping things is like my favorite thing in Magic.
Yeah.
That's why during game nights, I don't know if you can tell if you ever cut away to me, I was just jealous. Everything Jimmy was doing, I was like, I want to be doing that stuff. That looks like so much fun. So the next card is Minamo, School at Water's Edge. It's a legendary land. It taps for a blue, or you can pay a blue and tap it to untap target legendary permanent. So Galena's a legend. Kumena, obviously a legend. There are some other legends in the deck, and that's just like, basically costs you 2 mana to untap something.
Yeah, and it taps for blue mana as well. It comes in.
It doesn't cost you anything to play that over an island,
anything,
really.
And it comes in untapped. It's just, obviously it's low on the pricier side because it's a very good card, but yeah, it's very good in this deck specifically. All right, so that's sort of the tapping and untapping package. Now, obviously, you can add in more or less of these as much as you want. Obviously, there's what was the cycling card that untapped from? There's one from Amonkhet that was an untapper.
Oh yeah, the Vizier.
The Vizier of untapping.
I'm pretty sure that's what something wins. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and then there's everyone's favorite, your favorite card. It's a blue card. It untaps cards.
Fate Stitcher.
Fate Stitcher.
Yeah, but it's not a Merfolk.
It's not a Merfolk.
Seedborn Muse, I think, would be worth it in a deck like this.
Yeah,
that's going to untap everything.
Yeah, and you want your lands as well for something like Surge Spanner. For instance, if I had Seedborn Muse out, nothing would have existed on that board.
We immediately lose if you ever played it. Like you bounce everything, and Surge Spanner can bounce lands.
Yep,
that's the thing. It's permanent. So if you can Seedborn Muse or Surge Spanner and some of these combos going on, pretty easy. Just like you have nothing. You don't even have lands.
Yeah, pretty intense. All right, this next category is called Tribal Till I Die-ble. That was the best part of this outline so far. There's nothing.
You didn't see that until just
Tribal Till I Die-ble. There are obviously tons of really amazing tribal cards that have come out in the past, I don't know, half year now, almost a little longer than that. And
we've really been in a tribal
just mode
era,
for a while, yeah.
Era of Magic, I think.
Ixalan's very much tribal. The last Commander set was very much tribal. So really exciting stuff, though, because it just gives you so much more support to do things that I think are a little more on the potential of sounding offensive casual side of things. I think tribal decks are really fun and they're really thematic. It's not something that I would never ever naturally gravitate towards. Like I built a Neheb Minotaur deck with like 2 Minotaurs in it. Just because it's, for me, the exciting part of Magic isn't about playing a tribe, even if I love that tribe. But if you are a professor out there, if you are, someone that loves Merfolk or whatever tribe have you, there's going to be a lot of support for you. And one of those great cards is Herald's Horn.
Oh yeah, you did a lot of cool stuff with this too.
Maybe I'll just play Simic every time now.
Now you know why I do that.
Yeah, it's just like you get to play Magic and have a